All right, folks. So we talked a little bit in our previous segment about immigration and the housing markets. But here's a piece of news. This has been going on for the last couple of weeks in Kansas City. Roaches, rust, and rot. An inside look at the Kansas City tenant union rent strike against federally backed landlords. So this is a report by Millie Mansoray in the Kansas City Beacon. When you walk into the back entrance of Independence Towers, you're met with a foyer filled with dust, debris, and cobwebs. Two rust-coated elevators loom against the back wall. Peeling paint and caution tape line the dirt-ridden hallways on either side. Diasha White said it wasn't always like this. She's lived in the building for 6 years and described the first 3 as beautiful. But she said everything changed when a new owner purchased the building and a company owned by FTW Investments, LLC, took over management. You knew he was a different type of landlord who did not take care of the property, she said. We've got holes in our walls with rusted pipes exposed, vermin falling out of those holes, water creating soft spots in the ceilings, and mold. Independence Towers is owned by a limited liability company, 728 North Jennings Road Partners, LLC. FTW Investments said in a statement it managed the LLC as a service. After losing hot water for weeks, White joined the Independence Towers tenant union in May. That union accounts for 65% of the 63 occupied units in the building. In mid-May, a Jackson County judge appointed Triglid Inc. to manage the property after Federal National Mortgage Association, known as Fannie Mae, accused the owners of failing to keep up with repairs and payments. But tenants say that essential repairs have not been addressed. They say Triguild, Vice President Nancy Daniels has not communicated with the union since a meeting in June. The Independence Towers Union, together with the Quality Hill Towers Tenant Union, launched a rent strike on October 1st to demand better living conditions. The strike is organized by KC tenants. The unions are advocating for maintenance improvements, collectively bargained leases, and national rent caps on federally backed buildings. KC tenants say both properties were purchased with multi-million-dollar loans backed by Fannie Mae in 2021, the post-COVID year. The tenant unions want a national rent cap of 3% for all buildings that receive loans backed by Fannie Mae, which is regulated by the Federal Housing Finance Agency. They also seek repairs and maintenance for their respective buildings, as well as collectively bargained leases for residents. Of course, a great idea. The company gave tenants until October 3rd to submit their rent before issuing a total of $2,750 in late fees to residents in the 55 striking units, according to an October 5th KC Tenants press release. I don't know how it works. Maybe it's state by state. But in New York State, you have until the 5th before your rent is even considered late. It's not even considered late until the 5th. So I don't know why they're imposing late fees on the 3rd. Maybe it's different state by state.
Different state.
But tenants said they taped their late fee notices to management's door and burned several outside their offices.
That's the way.
That's the way. There you go. Here it is, happening now from October 4th. Striking tenants burn late fee notices they received in Quality Hill Towers in downtown Kansas City.
We burn this now!
There you go. That is the way. So Millie, who wrote this article, took these pictures herself. So here are some of the examples of the living conditions in these units. A KC Tenants member in a hallway where a woman admitting to setting a fire in her kitchen. As you can see, those repairs not exactly made. There is fire damage outside in the hallways that has not been fixed either. You can see some fire damage there. Back entry. Look at that radiator. Busted out. You got the floorboards peeling up in the hallways. You have the hole in the ceiling, as we read about in the piece. Just pretty horrible conditions there. Leader with KC Tenants said the rent strikes marked the first in its history. They also say these are the first ever strikes targeting FHFA, the regulator for Fannie Mae. Both buildings were purchased with loans backed by the government-sponsored enterprise. Together, the unions plan to withhold over $60,000 from their landlords in October, according to a KC Tenants press release. That could potentially impact a landlord's ability to make mortgage payments on Fannie Mae-backed loans. At the Quality Hill rally, speakers called for federal regulators to foreclose on Sentinel during negotiations. They want to be involved in finding a new property owner. Residents at Independence Towers said they want permanent fixes to the plumbing and heating and air conditioning systems, more maintenance staff, monthly pest control treatments, repairs to the parking garage, and a moratorium on evictions or lease non-renewals. The ongoing issues at Independence Towers have raised concerns about the effectiveness of the City of Independence's Rental Ready program, designed to ensure that rental units are safe and meet health standards. Despite complaints about building conditions, Independence Towers passed its most recent inspection in December. How is that
December. Possible? I mean, we just saw the video.
We just saw these photos. That passes inspection. That hole in the ceiling. Yeah, that is some corruption going on there, for sure. Brent Schondelmeyer, an Independence resident and former Kansas City Star reporter, told the city council he'd found that 99% of inspections from May 2022 to 2023 received a perfect score based on a checklist of 9 health and safety standards.
These motherfuckers are on the take.
Oh, yeah. Critics argue that the inspection process, which relies on third-party inspectors hired by landlords...
they're hired by the landlords.
Hired by landlords. That explains it all. May not adequately address safety concerns. You think so? Independent city council members are now considering revisions to the Rental Ready program, which they hope to have ready by the end of the year. That's some mafia shit. And that might actually be some mafia shit. You know, the mob has a little presence out there in Kansas City, you know, as we've seen. They always have. But seriously, I mean, that could be part of it. But something's going on. And the only answer, like we said, is to organize. That's what it's all about. There should be tenants unions everywhere, because that's the only power you have. And this is a running theme that we're going to be exploring in the months and years after this presidential race of doom.
Most black-pilled of all elections.
Exactly. This is the way. It's all about organizing people as a counterweight to the consolidation of capital. That's really what it is. It's Marxism, man. That's really what it is. It's as simple as that. You have to be organized. You know, my stepfather-in-law with my mother-in-law, they live in an apartment complex, you know, very, very modest apartment complex, promises central air conditioning, right? So they move in, the central air conditioning doesn't work. Doesn't work. Fuck you. We're not reducing the rent, nothing like that. They gave them a standalone unit that they kind of, not a wall unit, but you know, those units that stand alone and then you run the tube to the window. Apparently they do that for everybody.
An indoor AC.
An indoor AC. Apparently they do that for everybody in this row of buildings with no central AC. So in the middle of the summer, their roof, because they live on the ground floor, starts leaking and tears apart the ceiling and shit. And turns out what happened was the tenant upstairs left town for a few days and forgot to turn his air conditioning off. And he had his air conditioner rigged where the water would leak into this bucket. And he would have to empty the bucket every day or two so that there was more room for more water. Mm-hmm. He left for a few days, slipped his mind, forgot to turn the air conditioner off. Bucket tipped over. Water leaked through the ceiling, and the AC kept dripping more water. And the complex, you know, tried to blame it on this guy, which, I mean, yeah, that was a mistake to leave the air conditioning on. That's an honest fucking mistake. What's not an honest mistake is that you put this guy in a situation where he has to jerry-rig his air conditioner unit when you promised central air conditioning with the unit. And the only way to fight back against these people is to organize and not pay rent, because they have all the power otherwise. And we see this over and over again. That's the only way to actually move things forward here. Doesn't matter who the politicians are. That's irrelevant at this point. You have to organize ordinary people to provide that counterweight to power and money.
Yeah, New York City is a great example, actually, of what you can get done with organizing. And that is not to say that the system is perfect. But because of New York's unique history as this immigrant hub, and a lot of the immigrants that came in around the turn of the century were socialists from the old country. So you had very strong socialist organizations and traditions took root in New York. And they wound up putting a lot of pressure on city government to create tenant protections. And those protections are still in place. They're not as strong as they used to be. The real estate interests have a lot of influence on the city council, but the level of protection that tenants have in New York City is unknown in the rest of the country. You cannot get a New York City tenant out of their unit with dynamite. Like literally, it is a 2-year process to evict you from your home, which really gives people tremendous power if they want to do a rent strike. There is, I was talking to a lawyer because I was having problems in this building. He was representing a building where the whole building hadn't paid rent in like 5 years. The whole building, while it was pending in court. That is what. How did that happen? What, you think the business interest woke up one day and said, you know what, these tenants need protection? That's from collective action and collective organizing. That is the only way you get that. And because of that, as somebody in New York, I can tell you, if you're a tenant anywhere else in the country, you do not have the protection that I have. I have that protection because of all those working people who went out and fought for it. That's the only way you'll get it.
Yep. So good on them. The strike is apparently still ongoing, so we will try and follow that as one of our beats in the coming weeks. But good for them. Good for Kansas City.
Please clap.